Do you really think living to 100 depends only on luck or genetics, as if the body were some roulette wheel that is kind to some people and cruel to others? Do not fool yourself. After a certain age, it is no longer one major tragedy that destroys you. It is the small, foolish things repeated every day. It does not kill you all at once. It slowly dims you in installments, with chilling patience. Stay with me, Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. In this video, we are going to walk through 7 mistakes most people make without realizing it, and that end up costing them years of life, energy, and dignity. They are not dramatic, they are quiet. And that is exactly what makes them dangerous. Stay until the end, because the last one is the one almost nobody sees coming, and it is probably the one that does the most damage without you even noticing. Let us begin. 1. Do not live a sedentary life. Stop spending all day sitting and move every day. Let us start with the most basic thing, the one that seems insignificant and yet decides more years of your life than you can imagine. Because after 60, many people begin to surrender to an absurd routine. They sit down for breakfast, sit down to watch the news, sit down to eat, sit down to rest, sit down to watch television, and end the day exhausted without having done much of anything. And the most ridiculous part is that they call this peace and quiet, when in reality it is just an elegant way of slowly shutting the body down. Your body was not designed to become an ornament for the sofa. It does not matter how many excuses you invent, or how many times you say you do not have the same energy anymore, because that is exactly why you need to move more, not less. Movement is not punishment, it is maintenance. It is the way you remind your muscles, your joints, your heart, and even your mind that you are still here, that they still have work to do, that it is not time to rust yet. When you stop moving, the body understands the message with brutal clarity. It understands that you no longer need it to be strong, agile, or alert. And then it begins cutting back functions, like a cold company laying off workers it thinks are no longer necessary. Some people proudly say they have already done enough in life, and now it is time to rest. Yes, rest is fine. Turning rest into a lifestyle is something else entirely. One thing is recovering your energy, and another is living parked in place. Because the problem with being sedentary is not just the belly, the stiffness, or the low back pain that later shows up like a regular visitor. The real problem is that it steals your independence, and that should frighten you. Because the day you cannot get up easily, walk without getting winded, climb a few stairs without cursing your existence, or carry a bag without feeling defeated, that is the day you will understand that you were not resting. You were giving up. And here comes something almost nobody wants to accept. You do not have to be bedridden to live a sedentary life. It is enough to move less than your age requires. It is enough to always choose the easiest option, the shortest route, the closest chair, the most convincing excuse. What good is saving steps today if tomorrow you are going to pay for it with dependence? Do you really want to trade 10 minutes of walking for years of limitations? There it is. The perfect trap of the aging body is not pain. It is comfort. It seduces you gently, promises immediate relief, and then hands you a cruel bill. Epictetus, who was born a slave and understood very well what it means to lose freedom, insisted that a person must take care of what does depend on them, and your ability to move, within your limits, depends largely on you. I am not talking about running marathons or making a fool of yourself trying to look 30. I'm talking about walking, stretching, standing up more often, not spending hours motionless as if life were better observed from a chair. The Stoics did not worship comfort. They viewed it with suspicion because they knew excess comfort weakens both character and the body, and a weak body ends up dragging along a fearful mind. Moving every day also sends a message to your spirit, because it is not only your legs that atrophy when you give up on yourself. Your will becomes sluggish too. You start feeling heavier, clumsier, more shut down. And then you say it is just age, as if age were some cosmic conspiracy, instead of the accumulated result of your habits. Of course, not everything depends on you. It would be foolish to say that. But far more than you admit does. Walking every day, even a little, improving your posture, using your body, getting into the sun, breathing real air and not just the air inside your living room, all of that seems simple because it is. And that is exactly why it is maddening that so many people ignore it. And no, you do not need a perfect routine to begin. You need to stop acting as if every movement were optional. Make it part of your dignity. Stand up more, walk more. Stretch that body that can still give you so much if you stop treating it like old junk. Because getting old is not the problem. Arriving there immobile, dependent, and full of regret for not having done the bare minimum when you still could, that is a perfectly avoidable tragedy. Longevity is not protected by sitting still. It is built in motion, step by step, even when you do not feel like it, especially when you do not feel like it. 2. Do not neglect sleep. Avoid staying up late and treating chronic exhaustion as normal. There is a foolish habit many people carry for decades, and after 60 it becomes downright dangerous, sleeping badly and pretending it does not matter. They go to bed late, wake up several times, sleep with the television on, eat heavy dinners, fill their minds with worries, and the next day they say they are tired, but that it is normal, that at their age this is just how it is supposed to feel. No, it is not always normal. Sometimes it is not age wearing you down, it is your systematic disregard for rest. Sleep is not wasted time. That is what people believe when they are at war with themselves and want to feel productive even while they are destroying themselves. Sleep is the body's repair shop. It is where the mind gets sorted out, the mood stabilizes, energy is restored, tension is processed, and functions get regulated. The same ones you take for granted during the day until they start to fail. But of course, because it is invisible, because it does not earn applause, because it does not create the false feeling of doing something grand, many people sacrifice it with absurd carelessness. Then they are surprised when irritability, poor memory, lack of motivation, confusion, and that feeling of walking through life with a shriveled soul begin to show up. The most dangerous thing about poor sleep is that it becomes a habit. And when something becomes a habit, people stop questioning it. They start saying pathetic things like, "I have always slept little. This is just how I function. I'm used to it." Yes, people also get used to pain, bad food, and miserable relationships, and that does not make them healthy things. Getting used to living tired is not strength. It is poorly managed decline. It is like driving with a red warning light glowing on the dashboard and turning up the radio so you do not have to look at it. On top of that, when you sleep badly, you are not just more tired. You make worse decisions. You have less patience, less balance, less clarity. You eat worse, move less, get irritated more easily, and even struggle to keep the discipline needed to take care of your health. Do you see how everything starts connecting? Sleep is not a secondary detail, it is a foundation. And when a foundation fails, the rest of the structure shakes. But some people love showing off how much they can endure. They stay up late, rest little, and then parade around like heroes from an imaginary battle. In reality, they are not heroes. They are drained, disconnected, and increasingly fragile. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have too little time, but that we waste much of it. And one of the stupidest ways to waste it is to live half asleep, half lucid, half present. Seneca knew excess, politics, pressure, and exhaustion, and even so he understood the value of an ordered mind. An exhausted mind becomes the slave of impulses, fears, and dark thoughts. That is why protecting your sleep is also a form of self-government. It is not just about closing your eyes, it is about giving the body the night it needs, so it does not drag itself through the day like a defeated soldier. And here it is worth asking yourself something uncomfortable. How many of the issues you deal with now are worse because you are not resting well? How much mental fog have you decided to call normal just so you do not have to change 4 ridiculous habits? Because sometimes the solution is not heroic. Sometimes it begins with turning screens off earlier, eating a lighter dinner, slowing yourself down, respecting your schedule, and stopping the poisoning of the night with news, anxiety, or conversations that only leave you agitated. It does not sound spectacular, I know, but health is almost never built with spectacular things. It is built with modest actions repeated seriously. Sleeping well is also a declaration of self-respect. It is telling your body that you are not going to squeeze it dry. It is recognizing that you still want to think clearly, walk steadily, remember names, hold conversations, have energy, and not go through life yawning while pretending everything is fine. Chronic exhaustion makes you slower on the outside and more vulnerable on the inside. And the worst part is that it steals your enjoyment of life. Everything feels heavier when you do not sleep. Even small things become unbearable. So stop treating sleep like some luxury for people with nothing to do. It is not. It is a serious necessity, especially if you want to go far with something more than just a pulse. You want clarity, you want spirit, you want strength, you want years that are worth something. Then stop staying up late for foolish reasons and stop glorifying exhaustion. Your body does not need you to admire it for enduring mistreatment. It needs you to finally act like someone who understands that living longer also requires sleeping better. 3. Do not eat as if your body were 30. Cut back on sugar, ultra-processed foods, and oversized portions. This is where many people sabotage themselves with a smile, as if eating badly were some deserved reward for having worked hard all their lives. And of course, they tell themselves that at this stage, why bother taking such good care of themselves, that a treat is a treat, that everyone has to die of something. The little phrase sounds harmless, but it usually hides a rather sad surrender. Because enjoying food is one thing, using it to dig your grave with table manners is something very different. After 60, the body no longer negotiates the way it used to. Before, you could eat whatever you wanted, sleep badly, go back for seconds, devour dessert, and still function more or less the next day. Not anymore. Now every excess leaves a mark. More inflammation, more heaviness, slower digestion, more mental fog, more fatigue, more blood sugar spikes, more complaining joints, and more organs carrying a bill that does not belong to them. But many people keep eating as if their metabolism were some obedient employee that will never complain. Well, it does complain, and sooner or later it collects with interest. The most absurd part is that you do not have to eat junk all day to damage yourself. Sometimes all it takes is normalizing small, constant excesses, extra bread, sweets for no reason, nervous snacking, giant portions, sugary drinks, ultra-processed food disguised as something practical. All of that seems minor when you look at it separately. The problem is that the body does not experience it separately. It experiences it as accumulation. And silent accumulation is an expert at destroying without making a scene. It does not tear you down today. It slowly wears you out until one day you ask yourself why you feel so bad if supposedly you never do anything extreme. Eating well at this age does not mean living under punishment or turning the dinner table into a military camp. It means understanding that food is no longer only about pleasure. It has also become strategy. Every plate is an instruction you give your body. You tell it whether you want stability or chaos, energy or drowsiness, clarity or dullness. And no, you do not have to become obsessive or start weighing every leaf of lettuce like some anxious maniac. You simply have to recover the common sense the food industry has stolen from you. Less sugar, fewer lab-made products with names that sound like printer parts, fewer ridiculous portions for a life that has become increasingly still. The uncomfortable question is this: are you eating to nourish yourself or to numb yourself? Because many people do not eat out of hunger. They eat out of habit, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, reward, or sadness. And then they are surprised when the body becomes heavy, sluggish, and inflamed. What exactly were you expecting? If you use food as an emotional sedative, you are not feeding yourself. You are stuffing inner holes with spoonful after spoonful. And that never ends well. The body can put up with it for a while, but it does not stay quiet forever. There is also a childish pride in still saying, "I eat everything, and look at me, I am still here." Yes, you are still here, but the question is not whether you are still breathing. The question is how you are living, how much energy you wake up with, how clearly you think, how lightly you move. Because reaching old age, bloated, tired, dependent on pills and low in spirit, is not some culinary victory. It is defeat dressed up as habit. And the worst part is that much of that decline gets socially applauded, as if abusing food were some charming tradition and not a form of neglect. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire without ever stopping his inner self-discipline, wrote that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And even though he was talking about the mind, the idea fits here too, because a clear mind rarely comes from a body that is constantly overloaded. If you keep filling your system with excess, your mood pays for it too. You become slower, more irritable, more impulsive. The emperor understood something that today is forgotten far too easily. Ruling yourself is worth more than giving in to every appetite that crosses your path. Eating without restraint is not freedom. It is dependence with a tablecloth. And no, I am not telling you never to enjoy a good meal again. I am telling you to stop confusing pleasure with lack of control, to learn to leave the table before feeling defeated, to choose foods that support you instead of sabotaging you, to notice what truly gives you energy and what steals it from you with a polite smile. Because longevity is not decided only in hospitals, it is decided much earlier, 3 times a day, when you choose whether you are going to care for yourself or quietly betray yourself. At this age, your body needs less indulgence and more respect. It needs you to understand that every bite matters, not out of obsession, but out of dignity. If you want to go far, you cannot keep eating as if you were invincible. That version of you no longer exists, and honestly, it is not even worth longing for. Wisdom now is not about proving you can still handle anything. Wisdom is choosing what keeps you strong, light, and alert. Eating better does not take pleasure away from you. It gives you back years with quality, which matters far more than a poorly managed craving. 4. Do not smoke or abuse alcohol. They steal years, energy, and clarity from you. We are no longer talking about some harmless bad habit or a small weekend indulgence. We are talking about poison dressed up for society, about things many people still defend with baffling cheerfulness, as if filling your lungs with smoke or punishing your liver were signs of freedom, character, or a love of life. No, that is not a love of life. It is often just an elegant way of mistreating yourself while smiling for the photo. Smoking after 60 is not rebellion. It is self-destructive stubbornness. And abusing alcohol is not enjoying life either, even if culture dresses it up as celebration, companionship, or harmless routine. The body is already dealing with the natural wear of time, so adding toxins to it out of habit is like looking at an old house that is still standing and deciding to start hitting its columns for no reason. Then come the shortness of breath, the broken sleep, the unstable blood pressure, the drained energy, the slower mind, and the absurd dependence on something that never gave you real strength, only a borrowed feeling of it. Many people fool themselves with the classic line, "I have it under control." Of course. They have it so under control that they cannot relax without their drink, cannot talk without their cigarette, cannot get through stress without turning to the same thing again. That is not control. That is slavery with good manners. Because when you need a substance to feel relaxed, calm, or alive, you are no longer the one in charge. The habit is. And the habits that rule over you rarely end up being merciful. At first they promise relief, then they demand payment. The most perverse part is that these habits do not always destroy you in spectacular ways. Sometimes they do it quietly, like almost everything that ruins a life. They take away your physical stamina, steal your mental sharpness, shorten your patience, worsen your sleep, weaken your recovery, and make you more dependent on something external at the very stage when you most need inner autonomy. And for what? A few minutes of false calm, to keep playing a role that maybe even you no longer believe. Because it has to be said, many people do not smoke or drink out of real enjoyment, but out of identity, inertia, belonging, or a refusal to face their own emptiness. Musonius Rufus, who was not a philosopher of books but of lived discipline, taught that adversity does not destroy the virtuous person, it gives him room to exercise his character. And here you have a very clear field for that, because quitting tobacco or cutting back on alcohol is not just a medical decision, it is a moral decision with yourself. It is telling yourself that you are no longer going to hand your will over to an impulse that steals your breath, your balance, and your years. Musonius spoke of training character in concrete actions, not pretty speeches. Well, this is concrete. Giving up what harms you even while habit still asks for it. In the middle of the problem, another uncomfortable truth appears. Many older people drink or smoke because they do not know what to do with silence. Being alone with themselves makes them uncomfortable, so they blur themselves a little, numb themselves a little, distract themselves a little, and that is how the days go by. But tell me something, what good is reaching old age if you need to anesthetize yourself just to endure your own life? What kind of freedom is it when you cannot be at peace without a chemical push from behind? There is no enjoyment in that. There is escape, and prolonged escape always collects its debt in the body and in the soul. Alcohol also has an especially ridiculous trap. People use it to relax and then they do not rest well. They use it to loosen up and then they lose clarity. They use it to celebrate and end up paying with clumsiness, inflammation, and bad moods. Brilliant bargain, of course, and tobacco does not even bother pretending all that much. It steals your breath, ages your body, punishes your circulation, and starts closing physical doors one by one. You walk less, endure less, recover worse. But because the decline is gradual, many cling to the fantasy that it is not that serious yet until it is. You do not need theatrical extremes to understand this. It is enough to admit that at a certain age, you can no longer afford habits that take so much and give so little. Your energy is valuable. Your attention is valuable. Your ability to think clearly, breathe well, get up feeling steady. Remember, decide, and truly enjoy life without intoxicating yourself. All of that is far too valuable to keep trading for routines that shrink your life. And I do not mean only the years on the calendar. I mean the quality of your days, which in the end is the only thing you really possess. Quitting smoking or quitting alcohol abuse does not make you boring. It makes you awake. It makes you someone who finally stopped romanticizing what was consuming them. Someone who understood that dignity also shows in what you refuse, because maturing is not just about adding years. It is about stopping the bargains with what weakens you. And if you truly want to live longer and better, you cannot keep handing your body over to substances that take your strength, your clarity, and your peace in exchange for almost nothing. 5. Do not ignore medical checkups and the signals your body gives you. Small issues become serious out of pride. There is a kind of foolishness that becomes especially dangerous after 60. That habit of never checking anything, never getting tests done, never seeing a doctor in time, of enduring discomfort as if the body were a machine obligated to keep going in silence. Many people feel brave for avoiding the doctor. They think they are tough, self-reliant from another time. But in far too many cases, it is not strength. It is just badly placed pride. And pride, when it gets involved in health, is usually terrible advice. The body rarely starts by shouting. First it whispers. It sends small signals, subtle changes, discomfort that seems manageable, strange fatigue, pains that come and go, digestion acting up, mild dizziness, unusual blood pressure, more frequent forgetfulness, trouble breathing, one sign here, another there. And because they do not dramatically interrupt the routine, many people prefer to look the other way. They do not like admitting something may be wrong. They do not like feeling vulnerable, so they postpone, minimize, rationalize. And meanwhile, what may have been manageable, treatable, reversible, or controllable begins to grow with the dark patience of neglected problems. Some people turn neglect into an identity. They boast that they never go to the doctor, never take anything, never get checked because they have always been strong. As if lack of follow-up were a medal instead of a roulette wheel. Reality is far less romantic. Many illnesses do not announce themselves with drums. They move quietly. And when they finally show themselves clearly, they no longer arrive as a suggestion, but as a blow. That is when regret appears, that late phrase, if only I had gone sooner, if only I had gotten checked, if only I had not let it slide. The problem is that the body does not negotiate with hindsight, and it is not only about detecting serious disease, it is also about knowing yourself, keeping an eye on how you are doing, adjusting in time, not living blindly inside a body that no longer has the same tolerance for neglect. Medical checkups are not a betrayal of your independence. They are part of protecting it, because early intervention, a correction made in time, or a serious observation can save you years of unnecessary decline. But of course, some people love waiting until everything is on fire before looking for the extinguisher. Brilliant habit, no doubt. Here comes a question many people avoid because it ruins the character they are trying to play. What exactly do you gain by ignoring a signal from your body? In what universe does discomfort go away faster just because you decide to act like it does not exist? Not looking does not solve anything. Not asking does not heal. Not checking does not protect. It only lets you hold on to the illusion that everything is fine for a few more months. And that illusion usually turns out to be very expensive. Some pains do not kill, but they do limit. Some symptoms do not knock you down immediately, but they announce that something is going wrong. Catching it early does not make you weak. It makes you sensible. Cato the Younger, famous for being strict with himself, understood that discipline does not mean hurting yourself just to seem strong, but acting rightly even when you do not feel like it. And here, what is right with yourself is clear. If something is wrong, you deal with it. If you need a checkup, you get it. If a professional tells you to follow up, you do it. Not out of fear, but out of responsibility. Stoicism was never neglect disguised as bravery. It was clarity. It was seeing reality without makeup and responding with character. Denying a physical problem out of pride is exactly the opposite. There are also people who avoid checkups because they are afraid of finding something. That is deeply human, but also deeply dangerous. Fear of a diagnosis leads many people to prefer ignorance, as if not knowing were a form of protection. It is not. Ignorance only gives you a few days of false peace in exchange for much greater risk. Medical truth can be uncomfortable, yes. It can shake you, force you to change habits, make you accept limits. But at least it gives you a chance. Denial gives you none except the chance to keep wasting time. And do not ignore the small signs. The body has very concrete ways of speaking to you. Strange fatigue, broken sleep, persistent bloating, repeated pain, a strange feeling in the chest, memory failing suddenly, a sharp change in appetite, balance not responding the way it used to. None of that deserves your dismissal. It deserves attention, because at a certain age, arrogance costs more than ever. You are no longer at the stage of playing invincible. You are at the stage of taking care of yourself intelligently. So drop that absurd pride of the person who thinks enduring in silence is always noble. Sometimes enduring in silence is simply dangerous foolishness. Get checked. Listen to your body. Correct things early. Deal with what needs to be dealt with. Not to live in fear, but to live awake. Because small things, when ignored for too long, have a bad habit of becoming big, and then it is no longer about prevention. It is about consequences. 6. Do not live with constant stress and bottled-up resentment. They inflame you from within and slowly drain you. Some people reach old age with a tired body, yes, but above all with a soul that is overloaded. They live tense, hyper-alert, irritated by everything, at odds with half the world, clinging to old offenses as if holding on to resentment were a form of dignity. It is not. It is a slow and rather miserable way of poisoning yourself from the inside. Because prolonged stress and resentment do not stay in your head. They get into the body, disturb your sleep, harden your expression, change your breathing, steal your energy, extinguish your spirit, and turn existence into an endless trench. After 60, this weighs even more. You are no longer at a stage where you should be living in permanent alert over nonsense or replaying betrayals from 20 years ago as if that gave something back to you. And yet many people do exactly that. They wake up worried, eat under tension, speak from complaint, go to bed with their jaw clenched, and then act surprised that they feel exhausted. Of course you are exhausted. You are fighting internal wars every single day. No one can sustain a life like that for long without paying a high price. The problem with chronic stress is that it becomes your atmosphere. You no longer notice it as something exceptional, but as your normal way of moving through the world. You get used to rushing, to tension, to irritation. You get used to thinking the worst, anticipating disaster, reacting as if every setback were a personal attack. And the body, which does not distinguish very well between a real threat and a mind that does not know how to let go, responds the same way. Disturbed pulse, poor sleep, sluggish digestion, inflammation, exhaustion, lack of motivation. Then you say you feel old. Sometimes it is not age crushing you. It is the emotional burden you carry clutched so tightly as if it were part of who you are. And resentment is even more ridiculous, because it convinces you that holding onto a wound makes you strong, when in reality it makes you a slave to what happened. You remain tied to people, scenes and words that perhaps do not even exist the same way anymore, yet you keep them alive like embers. For what? To punish yourself more effectively, to prove your loyalty to old pain. Resentment does not correct the past, it only poisons the present. And doing that for years is a remarkably foolish way to hand your energy over to people who should no longer occupy that place in your life. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by betrayal, war, and human misery, reminded himself that the best revenge is not to become like the person who harmed you. Look at the height of that idea, not getting trapped, not becoming twisted inside, not letting someone else's dirt turn you bitter. That does not mean allowing abuse or smiling like an idiot at everything. It means not continuing to drink poison just to prove that you remember. The emperor understood that inner command is worth more than any emotional settling of scores, and he was right. Because you may have survived many things, but if you are still living consumed by them, you are not free yet. This is not about turning into some serene statue that never feels anything. That caricature is foolish too. It is about stopping the feeding of inner states that destroy you. Useful stress exists, of course. Sometimes it activates you, pushes you, helps you solve things. But constant stress, the kind that never lets up, that stays with you even when nothing is happening, that is what corrodes you. And bottled up resentment makes you hard on the outside and fragile on the inside. It steals your tenderness, your humor, your lightness. It turns you into a heavy presence, and the worst part is that you suffer from it first. Here it is worth saying something uncomfortable. Sometimes you are not tired only because of what you do. You are tired because of everything you refuse to let go, because of the conversation you keep replaying in your mind, because of the injustice you keep chewing on, because of your need to control everything, because of your habit of getting angry at reality every time it does not match your desires. Do you not see the brutal wear in that? Do you not notice how you slowly go dim when you turn every day into an argument with the world? Living that way is not intensity, it is badly managed exhaustion. Letting go does not always mean reconciling with everyone or magically forgetting. Sometimes it means taking distance, accepting that something hurt, learning from it, closing the door, and refusing to keep paying it rent in your mind. It means breathing differently, slowing down, walking without that burden, returning to what matters. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is inner hygiene. It is understanding that at this stage of life, you can no longer keep wasting health on emotions that already ran their course, and now only dry you out from the inside. If you want to go far, it is not enough to care for the body from the outside. You have to stop setting it on fire from the inside. Less useless tension, less mental fighting, less resentment turned into a private religion. Your whole system needs relief, not more punishment. And peace, even when it requires difficult decisions, usually extends life much more than emotional stubbornness does. Because a person can age through years, yes, but also through bitterness. And that second way is usually faster, quieter, and far sadder. 7. Do not isolate yourself or live without purpose. Without healthy connections and routine, you age faster. And here we arrive at the point many people underestimate because it does not leave visible marks on a blood test, nor does it always hurt on an X-ray. But it destroys all the same, and sometimes even more. There are people who are not seriously ill, do not smoke, do not eat that badly, and even follow some basic rules. But inside they have already withdrawn from life. They barely speak to anyone, expect nothing from the day, have no meaningful routine, do not care for their relationships, and no longer feel needed anywhere. And even though they are still breathing, something essential in them has already started to go out. Isolation does not always arrive as a tragedy. Sometimes it comes disguised as comfort, as peace, as I am not here for anyone anymore, as better alone than in bad company. And yes, of course, there are moments when chosen. Solitude clears you, settles you, and lets you rest. But one thing is knowing how to be alone, and another very different thing is disconnecting from the world until you become a grey spectator in your own existence. Human beings are not made to rot in silence. They need conversation, affection, belonging, tasks, small commitments, reasons to get up. When that disappears, the body feels it too. The most dangerous part is that isolation becomes a habit. At first you cancel one outing, then you stop calling, then you answer less, then you get used to not counting on anyone and to no one counting on you. And as the routine becomes emptier, it also becomes heavier. You get up without direction, do the minimum, kill time, distract yourself with anything, and little by little your life force shrinks. Not because you are weak, but because a heart without purpose beats differently. It still beats, yes, but without drive, without intention, without music. And here it is worth saying something many do not want to hear. It is not enough just not to die. You have to keep participating in life. You need at least one concrete reason to move, to get dressed, to go out, to call, to learn, to care for something or someone. What happens when you no longer have any? You begin to decline ahead of time. What happens when no one is waiting for you and you are not waiting for anything either? The day loses its shape, and when days lose their shape, the years collapse with alarming ease. Purpose is not some philosophical luxury. It is fuel. Viktor Frankl was not a classical Stoic, but he understood something deeply compatible with them when, in the midst of horror, he still saw that the person who has a why can better endure any how. And that is still true, especially in old age. You do not need some grand mission or a revolution at 70. You need something that pulls you out of the fog. It may be tending your garden, spending time with a grandchild, walking with discipline, reading attentively, helping with something useful, calling a friend, learning a skill, keeping a routine that reminds you that you are still here for something, because yes, you are still here for something. Relationships also matter more than many people admit. I do not mean surrounding yourself with people out of fear of silence or tolerating miserable company just so you do not feel alone. I mean healthy bonds, even if they are few, people you can really talk to, laugh with, remember with, share with, and feel seen by. The human soul ages worse when it feels unnecessary, and that feeling appears quickly when no one calls you, no one listens to you, and you yourself become convinced that there is no point in seeking connection anymore. That idea is lethal. Not immediately, of course. It works slowly, like almost everything serious. Seneca wrote that no fortune is enjoyable unless it is shared, and he was right. You can have time, a home, food, a certain stability, but if there is no bond, no purpose, no real human exchange, life becomes strangely hollow. Seneca understood that self-sufficiency does not mean isolation. It means not begging for affection, not becoming pathologically dependent, but still recognizing that life is strengthened through noble exchange with others. Shutting yourself away completely does not make you wise. It makes you more fragile even if you try to call it peace. There is also one brutally practical detail. When you lose purpose, you neglect everything else. You move less, eat worse, sleep more strangely, talk less, fade more. Everything spreads. That is why this last point is not decorative. It is structural. You can correct several physical habits, but if deep down you have already given up, sooner or later you will sabotage yourself again. Willpower needs direction. The body needs reasons. The mind needs a horizon. Without that, discipline does not last and life becomes a waiting room. So do not isolate yourself in the name of false peace. Do not turn solitude into an early grave. Seek conversation, build routine, make yourself useful, care for relationships worth the effort, and protect yourself from the poisonous idea that your moment has already passed. As long as you are still here, your moment is still here. Maybe not to run after everything, but to live with presence, dignity, and meaning. And that, more than any cosmetic supplement or trendy trick, is what truly keeps a person alive on the inside and helps them last longer on the outside. In the end, reaching 100 is not some feat reserved for the chosen few touched by luck. It is, to a great extent, the result of not destroying yourself with foolish, comfortable, repeated habits. It is not only about adding years, but about preserving strength, clarity, mobility, peace, and the desire to keep being here. Because the real tragedy is not aging. The real tragedy is fading too soon through neglect, stubbornness, or self-abandonment, and then calling destiny what was really daily negligence. Now comes something much more uncomfortable than listening to this video. Looking at yourself honestly. Seeing which of these behaviors is still living in you, which one you are still justifying, which one you keep putting off changing, as if the body were going to wait for you forever. You do not need to reform your whole life in one afternoon, but you do need to stop lying to yourself starting today. Move more, rest better, eat with respect, let go of what poisons you, get checked in time, lower useless tension, and above all, do not withdraw from life while you are still in it. That is where the difference begins between merely lasting and truly living. If this message stirred something in you, subscribe to the channel and write this phrase in the comments: I live with wisdom. And if you are watching me from some corner of the world, tell me too which country you are joining me from. I like knowing where this community of people is gathering from, people who no longer want to stay asleep, complacent or surrendered to decline. We are not here to decorate old age. We are here to defend it with character. Gabriel here. This is the Stoic Garden. On screen, I'm going to leave you 2 recommended videos so you can keep strengthening your mind, your boundaries, and the way you live this stage of life with more awareness and more firmness. Watch them and stay with this process because you still have time to correct far more than you think. And remember this until it stays with you. The person who governs themselves from within grows old with more peace and much more dignity.